So what we're doing this evening, T's and C's, terms and conditions in your plastering business. Question for you. Let's get the chat going. Who's got some T's and C's set up already? I know Darren has, who's currently watching from webinars. He's actually done it today, he said. But who else has got some T's and C's set up? I'm not talking financial, guys, either. I'm not talking about financial T's and C's. I'm talking about setting the expectations when you undertake work in people's homes. Are you relying just on a verbal chat, quick conversation? Or have you got anything in writing? Let me know. Who's got some T's and C's set up and who hasn't? And who feels that they're necessary and who's been tripped up in the past with some of the problems that I mentioned on that video earlier? Anybody been tripped up in the past? So that video that I put on earlier, guys, I mentioned about Rich Brooks and Rich's case. And look, these things can happen to anybody. Rich isn't new to self-employment. He's been self-employed for a while. And Rich did a lot of things right, in all honesty. He did set out some terms and conditions, and he did take a booking deposit and things like that. But nevertheless, he's got messed around properly on this job. And, you know, it all starts with, first they moved the start date. So he had a job booked in with an agreed start date. First problem is they moved that and said, okay, listen, we don't want you to start here now. Can you start in a month? So this is quite common. And, you know, if you're a self-employed plasterer, then, you know, I've had this, where start dates get moved. People mess you about, especially if you work for builders. So we're well used to that anyway. Most of the time we'll either pull work forward, or we'll get around it somehow. We'll go around it, we'll go under it, we'll go through it. We'll just make sure that we do something, spin the plates, and we'll just deal with it when people move dates. We're well used to that, but nevertheless, it shouldn't happen, and it's a ball ache when it happens. So the first thing they did is they moved the date on him. He took that one on the chin, and he agreed to do it a month later. The second thing they did is they didn't clear any of the rooms, despite him, you know, having that verbal conversation. They didn't clear any of the rooms at all. So we're talking like bunk beds, double beds, wardrobes left in the fucking rooms when he's gone in to start the project. We've all had this, and because we need the money and because, you know, we can't afford to just down tools and go, we end up being the mugs that, you know, shifting wardrobes about and trying to throw everything into the middle of the room, put a tarp over it, and trying to skim ceilings with furniture in the rooms. We shouldn't be having to do that. Nevertheless, we do it, don't we? I've done it. I still do it, if I'm honest. If I've got a little old lady living on her own and she can't move the furniture, then of course that's a different scenario. But when it's down to pure laziness on the customer's part, and they're being ignorant, or they forgot, or whatever the reason is, we end up being lumped with a job. And again, that's going to cost us money because it's taken us more time. So Rich has ended up working around all this furniture, taking down bunk beds with Allen keys and doing whatever it takes for him to get the job done. And all credit to him, you know, he's a person that just sort of, rather than have a tantrum about it and spit his dummy out, is just did what's necessary to get the job done and get paid. So, you know, fair play to him for doing it and not storming off. But point being, this really shouldn't be happening, should it, on our jobs? So clearing the rooms. What else happened? They booked in other trades during his slot when he's supposed to be in these rooms plastering. They had other trades there. Decorators, electricians, bashing in spotlights that they didn't tell him about, things like that. They've stuck extras on the job and expected Rich to just cover it, like chases that weren't discussed. So I'm not talking just the odd little chase. Every single room, he said, every single room, multiple chases all around the rooms. He's had to, take that on board and bolt that onto the job as well, which, like I say, is a good bloke, so he's done it for him. But nevertheless, it wasn't discussed. The arrangement was just stick it on the bill. So we're going to come on to that later as well, and how we can avoid this tripwire of people bolting on extras, and then in Rich's case, they challenged the price of the extras at the end, and he got undercut at the end, got ripped off a little bit at the end. Still got the bulk of his money, but what else did they do? Access. So he couldn't get in the rooms on some days. So we'd say, listen, tomorrow I'm going to be in that room there. I need it cleared, and I need to be in by, 8:30. He'd turn up the next morning, the customer's teenage son still in bed asleep. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on a lot of different things, a lot of which have come from the live session I've done with Rich, and taken on board all these challenges that I just mentioned. But most of it is just problems that we all face every week as domestic plasterers, and problems that you'll see on Trowel Talk community group constantly. Plasterers pulling their hair out and being messed about on jobs. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, guys. And again, the financial terms and conditions, we've covered that in the coaching group quite intensively. And for those of you that are members in there, you'll know that we've got a whole document dedicated to financial terms and conditions, which include cash flow, booking deposits, staged payments, how and when you get paid, what happens if you can't start the job and you've took a deposit, what happens if they cancel and you've got their deposit, all that sort of stuff. So the financial side of the terms and conditions is covered. So we're not going to talk about that because that's covered. Waste disposal, we're not going to talk about waste disposal and sheeting up carpets, because that's also covered in the coaching group, because we include that information in our quote, and that's just a line or a paragraph. That's quite an impressive thing. It's a selling point, so we include that on the quotation. All waste will be removed and disposed of professionally. Here's our waste carrier's license number, blah blah blah. So that's included on the quotation. All carpets and hardwood floors will be fully protected during works. That's another selling point. So that's included on the quotation. So we're not talking about those two things either today, guys. So the 5 key areas that we're going to focus on are: number 1, working area. Number 2, arrival times and access. Number 3, changes to the job when the customer's moving the goalposts, or the job changes because we've discovered more work is needed. So we'll talk about that. Other tradespeople coming in and unplanned additional work, which we touched on earlier. And the 5th one, the last one, is them basically agreeing to these terms. So that's what we're going to talk about this evening. But how is everybody anyway? I'm just going to hit the chat on both platforms just to make sure you can see, you can hear me all right, and everyone's happy and the audio is coming through properly and they can see the template. Good evening, Rich. Hope you're well. Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Matt Dicketts. Good evening, Bolo. Good evening, Mike. Rich just says here that he's got some bullet points that go on his quote now. I then put them in more detail on the email, therefore they get them twice. I try to cover what I can when I'm there measuring up. Yeah, good shout, mate. Well, hopefully this evening, some of this information will really help. And this document, by the way, for the coaching group, lads, is at the top of the group and it's free and it's downloadable. Just click it and it'll download straight to your phone and you can edit it, tweak it, change it. Matt Small, he's had this a lot, taking radiators off and following up. their washing that was left on the banister. Yeah, don't splash the washing, mate. Again, stuff we shouldn't be doing. Shouldn't be moving people's dirty Y-fronts off the banister, should we? Bolo. I've had similar issues a few times. Cat and dog shit everywhere, mate. What sort of jobs you been working on, mate? Although I have had that a few times over the years. Some not so nice areas here in Coventry when I first started up. George Carr's comments. He says room clearing is a big one. Yep. Darren says all good on the audio and the visuals. Good. Good evening, Woj. Good to see you, mate. And it was great to meet you in Edinburgh as well. Great to meet you. Steve's on. Steve Broderick's on, and Adam Williams is on. Right, we're all cooking. So let's unpack it then. Let's have a look. All right then. So this document is, again, it's editable, and in green at the top, obviously your company name, address goes there, yeah? Swap that out for your own company logo and details, which should always be included on any documentation that you have for your business all the time. So that goes there. Now I've named it terms of agreement when booking. You could name it what you like, terms and conditions, job agreement. I think Rich has named his clarifications. Name it what you want, but ultimately what this does, guys, is it just covers your ass and gives you something to refer back to when these problems arise. So rather than having a confrontation with the customer, rather than falling out with the customer, this gives you a little bit of give when these problems arise, and it gives you, again, something to refer back to. So it's going to avoid confrontations, disagreements, and misunderstandings. Okay, and of course, a lot of this stuff, like I mentioned on the video earlier, a lot of it, you could say, well, isn't this common sense, Stu? You know, a plasterer needs power, a plasterer needs water. It's common sense to me and you, because we're professional plasterers and we do it every day. But you'd be surprised. I've had it a few times over the years where I've started a project and the customer has actually said, "Oh, you need water." And I've said, yeah, we need water to mix up the plaster. And she said, "I thought it just come in tubs and you pull the lid off and, you know, like polyfiller and just start spreading it on." I said, and you have to sort of explain to them, you know, we mix the material on site. You know, it's fast setting and then we go through the whole process. But what's obvious to me and you isn't always obvious to the customer. And Woj, I know Woj is watching right now. He said earlier, well, these customers are just numpties, which, you know, maybe some of them are numpties. If they've never had a renovation done in their life ever, and they might be young, especially now, young people today, they haven't got a clue about renovations. Even the young lads, you know, some of them they've never gotten their hands dirty in that way. So they literally, some of them don't know anything about property renovation at all. So it's our job really as professionals to help them to understand exactly what's involved. Not to the point where you're being patronising, but to the point where you've made it so crystal clear and obvious what's happening. In writing as well, you could do this in writing, which some of it here you'll see is stating the obvious for me and you. But what it does, it gives you an edge when you do this, guys. When you've got written terms, it gives you that edge of professionalism. You're clarifying what's going to happen at what stage, every little stage through the project. So you're offering clarification and transparency for the client as well, that may not be aware of what happens when they have a room plastered. So, and also, guys, ultimately it's protecting us. That's what this is doing as well. It's protecting our time and our money, isn't it? So like in Richard's case, he spent way too many hours making allowances for this client and moving furniture, waiting for their kids to get out of bed, waiting for other tradespeople, being messed about, being stressed. So it's preventative measure for us as tradespeople, and it means more money in the back pocket, doesn't it? At the end of the day, it means that our jobs are more likely to run smoothly. And if you do start a project and you run into one of these bullet points, you're in your rights to say, I'm ever so sorry, but if you refer back to our agreed terms that we agreed, all furniture was supposed to be moved out of the room. So we will have to charge, unfortunately, for the time it takes now to move this furniture out. If you refer back to our written terms, Mrs. Smith, you'll see that we are due to arrive between 8:30 and 9 a.m. There's nobody home, or we can't get into the room. So I'm afraid if you refer back to our terms, we will have to charge for the time wasted waiting to get into the property. This is what I mean when I say you refer back to your payment terms instead of having some kind of verbal with the customer and a disagreement. All you're doing is you're just reminding them and signposting back to what they agreed to themselves when they paid you the booking deposit or when they booked you in. And if this were to go to a court of law, for example, if you got into a sticky situation and it got really bad and they did owe you a few quid and you wanted to challenge it and pursue it and fight it, then basically they've breached their contract, because you present this to the court and you say, listen, this is the terms that we presented. Once they've paid that deposit payment, or once they've said, yes, we want to book you in, now you're in contract, and they're breaching their contract by basically doing all this stuff. Okay, so you're well within your rights. So ultimately, aside from you being more professional and offering this level of clarification and professionalism, but you're also protecting yourself and your business. So that's why it's so important. But anyway, let's unpack the first one, and then I'll hit the chat again just to make sure I'm not missing any comments that come in. So we'll unpack the first one, which is working area, preparation, power and water access. This is how I've worded it. Access to power and water is required during works. Rooms/working area must be clear of all furniture. This is to allow for equipment and full access to surfaces. If rooms are not clear, we may have to reschedule the job or charge accordingly for time required to move the furniture, unless this has been pre-agreed and included in the original quote. When plastering over existing walls, all wallpaper must be removed in advance, including any backing paper. If wallpaper has not been removed, we may have to reschedule the job or charge for the removal of the paper, unless this has been pre-agreed and included on the original quote. Okay. How many of you have turned up to do a reskim and there's fucking wallpaper still left on some of the walls? Hit the chat and let me know, because this has happened to me dozens of times over the years. Or they've took the top layer off and they left the bloody backing paper on, thinking, oh, we can skim over that. Matt Small. I've mostly spent most of my 20-year career subcontracting and doing site work. About 4 years ago, I went off on my own. I had no idea about business, and I didn't get paid for a £4,000 micro cement job. I paid for the materials and for my labour. Paid for the materials and my labour. The work was still absolutely fine. As I've been to the nightclub recently, the dispute was all about the colour. I installed the colour that they picked from the colour chart, and it was confirmed on a sample board. But at the end of the day, they argued that the colour on the wall was slightly different to the sample board, and he didn't get paid. He says that thanks to the coaching group, I've got terms and conditions in place now. He's took his first deposit for materials on a job a couple of weeks ago. Something I've never done before. Yeah. when we first start off in self-employment, we always end up getting spanked by somebody at some point, because nobody trains us about the pitfalls of business and how to create terms, how to generate cash flow weekly, and all this. So that's why this coaching group's here, is to help the self-employed lads that are struggling. And many people just throw the towel in. That's why there's such a high failure rate on new business, because it's just too hard. And if you haven't got any kind of business skill set at all, and you're just sort of making it up as you go along, which is what I did and what many other people do, it can get to the point where you're working 10 times harder than what you need to be, because you've got no systems. You're just doing everything yourself, 12, 14 hours a day, that you get to the point you think, this just must be how self-employment is, and therefore it's not for me. And then you go back to working for somebody else. Self-employment is hard, but we make it harder than what we need it to be, harder than it should be, by not having any kind of systems or procedures locked in. And these people can smell it a mile off. These people that like to rip off tradesmen, they can smell it a mile off when we're a little bit green, and they see us coming. And unfortunately, these people will always be around, and we can't change that. All we can change is how we run our businesses, our end, and putting these firewalls in place to prevent it happening. For example, the booking deposit, the staged payment agreement, and these written terms, things like that. It's all there as a defence mechanism to stop people like that ripping us off. Good evening, Aaron Blakeston. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. Well, what we've got on the webinars group, Woj says that, he says, I usually go through these things with the customer during the survey. Most of us will just have a verbal discussion with the customer when we're there quoting the job. But like you touched on earlier, Woj, it's not enough. Sometimes it's not enough. And assumptions are dangerous, aren't they? You might feel that you've set the expectation thoroughly during a little conversation, but verbal information can get lost, it can get forgotten, it can be miscommunicated. They might say, well, you never said that, I don't remember you saying that. And at least by having it in a document form, again, you could refer back, and by them agreeing to book you in and scheduling you in, that's their agreement. If they've not read through it, that's on them. You've presented it to them and said, listen, payment of the booking deposit, which I'll come on to this later, but basically how it works is payment of the booking deposit indicates that you've read and agree to our working conditions, whatever you want to name it. So like I say, most of us will just have a verbal conversation, but like in Rich's case, he did say to them, I need the rooms clear, I need the furniture removed, I need the beds out of the room. And then Monday morning came and they hadn't done it, and they didn't really have an excuse or a reason to not do it. We told them on numerous occasions. In that situation, they could say, oh, sorry, I forgot, or sorry, I don't remember you saying that, but at least if it's in his terms, the customer's less likely to take the piss if it's in written terms, because they know they can't really push it because it's in writing. And funnily enough, on that job I mentioned about Rich as well, the electrician smashed all these chases into the walls, and then the customer said, are you going to be filling these chases? And the electrician actually said, if you refer back to my payment terms, madam, you'll see that we don't actually fill any chases. That's the plasterer's job. And they said, oh, okay. And you didn't see her saying, oh no, you've done the chases, now fill them. That's the professional way of handling it, by referring back to the agreed terms. So the Sparky wasn't daft, and unfortunately Rich has ended up doing the chases, and then them not paid him properly, which we'll come on to that. So I don't think a verbal conversation sometimes it's not enough wage, is it? And that's what this document's all about. And again, with the power and the water, it's bad that we have to put that in writing, but it's just covering all ground. Because I have seen posts on Trowel Talk community where lads have said the customer's kicked off because I'm using their power and their water, and you're like, surely this is common sense that the plasterer needs to use the power and the water, but it does need to be somewhere within your quote, because some people are, like Wo just said earlier, they are numpties, and it's just not crossed their mind that you need to use their power supply and their water supply. Right, let's talk about arrival times then, guys. Now again, this document is going to be editable, so you can swap, change and add things to how you work and how your business operates. But this is how I've worded this paragraph here: arrival times, working hours and access to the property. Arrival times can vary depending on material collections and traffic conditions, but will usually be between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. And the reason that I've put that is because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll say to the customer, or more likely they've asked me, what time will you be here tomorrow then? And in the past I've said I'll be here at 8, just flippantly saying it. And then in the morning, I've either realised, I've got to drop my boys to school today, I forgot, or I've just realised I need to pick up some more beads, whatever it is. And I've ended up getting there at 8:30. And some people are regimented and they hang on every word you say. And I've had one customer who was ex-military, he was waiting at the gate, and he said, I've been waiting here since 8 a.m. because you said you'd be here at 8. He didn't have to go anywhere. He was there all day, but he seemed almost offended that I turned up at 20 past 8 and not 8. So as silly as it sounds, as stupid as that sounds, it's just giving them an understanding. Look, we don't work in a factory here. We don't turn up, clock in, and clock out. We're responsible for the collection of the materials. We have to load the materials, unload the materials. And I do that early doors. I don't know about you. I know some guys will do this on a Sunday, or they'll use their evenings to do it. I don't do that. I'll do it early doors. Salco's opens at 6:30. So typically I'll be up early and I'll load out relatively early. So sometimes that means, depending on how busy the merchants is, depending on traffic, depending on where the project is, sometimes it won't be 8 a.m. Sometimes it'll be 8:30. So give yourself a window. Don't say I'll be there at 8. Give yourself a window. I'll be there between 8 and 9. I find that works quite well. And also, you can refer back if there's ever a conversation about what time you start. You refer back again to this agreement, and then I'll go on to say access to property and to working area / rooms is required at this time. If access to the property is delayed or obstructed, we may need to reschedule the job or charge accordingly for the job delays. And in Rich's case, teenage boy wouldn't get out of bed. I think Rich did lose his rag at this point and said that he'll go in and flip the bed and drag him out the room, which I thought was quite funny. But you can imagine the frustration. You've already gone through all this crap, and then you're halfway through the job and now the teenager won't get out of bed. So according to this paragraph here and these terms, you are within your rights to say, listen, I've wasted an hour and a half now. I'm not prepared to wait any longer. I have to reschedule this and come back at a time when this room's clear and available. It's about asserting yourself as well. Again, we don't want to be falling out of anybody, but if people have took the piss multiple times, doesn't give you much options, does it really? At some point, you're going to have to refer back to the terms and say, listen, we'll come back tomorrow, or I'm going to have to charge now for this hour that I've waited. So it gives you the option there. Right, we'll go on to the next one. I've named this one changes to scope of works and scheduling other tradespeople. The biggest bugbear for us spreads, isn't it? Us being piggy in the middle, coming into the middle of the renovation. We're relying on all these other trades to be out of our way. First fix electrician, first fix plumbing, first fix chipping and structural, or windows being fitted, etc. We're sort of relying on all these lads to be out and done. But in a lot of situations, they're not finished, are they? We turn up and they're still messing around, putting gas pipes in or putting extra back boxes in, or I've just got to fit this new window today. And we're there trying to skim the reveals, and we've all been there. So this little paragraph just sort of covers us for situations. I could keep referring back to Rich's case because he had it all, didn't he? He got walloped from every angle. But he had the electrician and the decorator there in the rooms that he was supposed to be skimming. And the decorator was steaming off wallpaper. The electrician was still putting in holes in the ceilings for downlights, which wasn't discussed. And so this paragraph, guys, it basically just covers us for situations where we've turned up to skim this room out and they're still fucking around with other trades and they're not out the way. So in that situation, we're well within our rights to say, I'm sorry, but if you refer back to the terms, we do need the rooms completely clear. It's different if a tradesman comes in for half hour in the morning, it's not a problem, but it's when they're there all day, creating dust, preventing us from getting to the walls we need to get to, and then expecting us to just wait and get a mix on afterwards. It's not fair because we're working to the clock, we're working to the set. So this covers us in that scenario. And how it's worded is changes to scope of works must be made in advance and communicated prior to starting the job. When scheduling other tradespeople to undertake work in the same working area, advance notice must be given. And where possible, trades should be booked either before or after plastering work starts. It's fair. All the stuff that's been listed here, guys, is all fair. We're not really making any unfair demands, are we? So if they do want to, have another back box put in, if they do decide, I want a little stud partition put there, or I might change the window now, they need to either do that before or after we've done. It's not going to be happening while we're in the room and we've got a mix on. So that paragraph sort of covers that area. Any thoughts so far in the chat on anything that I've touched on today? Good evening, Colin Price. How are you, brother? Woj basically goes on to say that vetting customers gets rid of 90% of these numpties. Yes, mate, 100%, 100%. And there's a big emphasis on vetting in this coaching group using a simple form that you can set up, a vetting form. But it goes beyond the form, if I'm honest. The form's the first line of defence. The first defence mechanism is the form. Once they come through the form, then it's our job to obviously check the answers and get them on the phone. And the ultimate decision maker will be money, as shallow as that sounds, because there's no point continuing this conversation with a new inquiry until you spoke about money. Because how many times have you spent hours and hours, driving around to different cities looking at a big potential project? They've asked you to itemize it. They've asked you to break it down room for room. They've made changes when you're to and fro with your messages. Oh, I might not have that room done now. How much extra would it be to render the gable? Could you put that on the price? And before you know it, you've lost 3.5 hours on this inquiry. You've burnt fuel. You've wasted your time. You put the price in, which is all nicely presented, letterheaded, and you've heard nothing back. They've ghosted you. How many times has that happened? I know it's happened at least once to everybody listening to this right now. And it's happened to me one too many times, which is why the vetting system is in place. But we've also got the voicemail vetting system in place on the coaching group as well, which is a very, very powerful tool. Stops you having to answer the phone to price shoppers and tire kickers. Stops you having your time pulled away. Once you have answered the phone, it's very difficult to end that call without looking like a bit of a knob, red buttoning people. It's very difficult to get out of that phone call once you've answered it. So someone could be rattling onto you for 20 minutes while you've got skim setting, talking about, their brother's, uncle's, sister's pet that's poorly, and, rambling about something that's nothing to do with the project. In the meantime, your time's being burned. So be careful about pressing that green button on your phone and answering random phone calls that come in. Most of them will be total waste of your time. Get them into your vetting form instead and screen and vet them. Once you've vetted them, then you call them, get them on the phone, or use a system like Calendly, the phone booking system, where you decide when they're going to call you, and you give them options and give them a slot of when you can answer phone calls. When I was using this system, it was between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. because that's, any time after that, I'll either be mixing up or spreading. So that little window in the mornings on weekdays was when I could speak to people. But I stopped answering the phone to random phone calls a long, long time ago, and I don't answer the phone now to random calls that come in, because most of them are just price shoppers, and they're unvetted leads. I won't speak to unvetted inquiries anymore. Just wasted too many hours of my life doing it. Darren says that power, water is always added that onto his quotes. Anyway, yeah, brilliant. Most don't, to be honest, Darren, which is the truth. He goes on to say that he did a silicon job a few years back. The guy held money back because he didn't mastic around the windows. Thanks to his quote that stated step by step the service I was providing, which did not state masticing, he won a small claims court battle and got his money. Always good to back yourself up, yeah. And again, I'm glad you've put that in, Darren, because that highlights and emphasises the point of this podcast today, which is to get everything in writing. And because you did that, you won. Otherwise, it would have been your word against his, which is the whole point in this podcast today, and the importance of having written terms. It's not our job to mastic up windows at all as plasterers. The chances are your gear was still wet when you left. So how he's expecting you to run silicone guns round on wet render, like I say, a lot of these things are common sense to me and you, but not so common for these customers. And it sounds like he was a bit of a ball end anyway. So well done, mate, for winning that one. Stephen says that lining paper was still on. It's sometimes hard to tell on plasterboard walls, but this was clearly papered. I said to the customer, I can start taking it off, but I obviously need to charge extra. Or you can do it yourself. They done it. So I just brought a couple of jobs forward and went back the following week. Yeah, fair play, mate. And that's what most of us will do. I've done that before, where rather than creating some kind of upset, that's the last thing we want to do, isn't it? The last thing we want to do is have a confrontation. Because if we have a confrontation, that's going to risk, number one, it's going to risk the 5-star review. And I know you're thinking, well, surely money's more important. Money is important. Profit is important. But the end goal, and this is something I spoke about recently on the coaching group, our end goal when we do these jobs is to create an advocate in the customer and to get a referral. That's our end goal on every single project we do. If we don't get that, we've done something wrong. We might have pulled the job off might have looked all right, tidy enough. We might have got paid. But for some reason, that customer is not advocating for you and is not referring you on and is not leaving you a 5-star review online. Something's broken within the customer journey there. So the reason I say to lads, your end goal isn't getting paid. That's step 2. The end goal is to be referred, because if you get referred, you're getting paid anyway, aren't you? So the 5-star review will indicate you're getting paid. But most lads will bash jobs out quick, go on to the next job, bash that one out, get paid on to the next one. But they're not giving a lot of thought into how good am I? Like, how good is my communication? How good is my customer service? Why am I not getting reviews? Why have some plasterers in my area got 78 reviews and I've got 3? What am I doing wrong? Why am I not getting these reviews? And you've got to sometimes be quite brutal and honest and look at your system of what you do from the journey, from the beginning right through to the end, and be honest and ask yourself, is there room for improvement there? Because the review will indicate, ultimately what it says is you're running a successful business, because the customer comes in with an inquiry, and the end is them becoming an advocate for you and your business and referring you on to other people. And today that's done on Google. So instead of them telling a couple of family members how great you are, they'll go online and tell the world how great you are. And that's what will build up your social proof, your reputation. That's what will separate you from a queue of other plasterers that won't work, because that stands out. That stands out more than any silly avatar you can put on your website, or any professional nice photos that you have done, or getting your van all sign written up, or putting a nice clean polo shirt on. That's gonna say more about you than any of all that other image stuff, because there's too much focus on image with business coaching. Everything's about image. Oh, if you look good, you'll be good. No, not really. That's part of it. You don't want to look like a pikey, but image is such a small part of being a successful plasterer. If you look on Trowel Talk, look at all the top boys on there. The guys that are doing well, they're all scruffy bastards like me. They don't pay much attention to the image side of it. And again, it is important, but I feel there's too much emphasis on image. And we're plasterers at the end of the day. We're not photographers. We're not wedding planners. People expect us to carry dust, and they expect us to have scruffy work boots on and scruffy vans. So that's worth mentioning as well. Wedge says that he always puts things in writing. Yep, top man. Changes to the scope of works is a good point. Yep. And as well, if anybody has got any thoughts on any of this, because I know that a lot of boys are predominantly rendering full time, and these terms that I've set up here are mostly for the domestic plasterer, the internal guys. So, for example, scaffolding, that could be a paragraph, couldn't it? What happens with the scaffolding? What happens when we're finished? Who's responsible for the scaffolding? Who pays for the scaffolding? And all that kind of stuff. So that could be a conversation, and that could be a paragraph. So any feedback from the boys watching would be appreciated as well, if you're not predominantly internal. Steve says he's set up a text message on his phone he can press rather than answering. Ask the customer to send a room dimension. Oh, okay. So this is very similar to the system we use, mate. So he's asking them to send customer room dimensions and pictures to see if he can work out an estimate based on that. Yeah, that's a good shout. Ultimately, any kind of vetting and screening of the customer is what you need before committing, before even driving around there, which, there's a big emphasis on that. I always put a big emphasis on that, guys. I'm just going to refresh these comments within the coaching group because I think there's a lag. While I'm just waiting for this to load up as well, I just want to talk to the guys that are in the webinars group watching. The guys that have joined the webinars group, I know that you boys have been interested in a few of the things that I talk about that we cover inside the coaching group. And I want to just reel off what is covered. For those of you that may be new to Trowel Talk or new to the webinars group, and you're unsure what do I get? Like what is this group all about, and who's it for? So the first thing we cover, guys, is lead generation, as you know. Many of us are still on My Builder. Many of us are still paying for Facebook boosts, Google ads, even worse, checker trade or tricker trade, as we like to call them. So there's a big focus on lead generation inside the coaching group, and we do that by using Google and many of the free platforms that's on Google. So that's the first thing, and probably the biggest value asset that you're going to get really from being part of the coaching group is you're going to learn how to generate your own leads and get off paid subscriptions and paid platforms. Video marketing, building free websites, building dedicated landing pages. You'll learn how to embed videos into your website. You learn how to rank your website and a YouTube channel and your Facebook business page, things like that. So that's probably the biggest selling point really, is the lead gen. But on top of that, there's a big focus on customer and job management, which we've touched a little bit on that this evening. We use a CRM system. You can use any CRM system you like. Your Trade Base is the go-to for me. I know that some lads are using ServiceMate. There's lots of them. There's loads to choose from. But we basically unpack the CRM and we leverage it and utilize it, and we tie it in with a lot of the other systems. So customer and job management, a lot of us are still dropping the balls really when it comes to booking in jobs, scheduling jobs, merging jobs. So one job will end and then we've got another one starting. That's where we tend to drop the balls, let people down with start dates and things like that. It's all because a lot of us haven't got any kind of structure or system in place for job management. We're either keeping everything in our head or on a paper diary or on the back of a sandwich packet, and it's not really a reliable system. So we'll talk, we'll unpack that and show you how to get your jobs properly scheduled and organised so you never drop the balls. Payment terms, I've just touched on that earlier, but payment terms is another biggie that I help people with in the coaching group as well. So I'll show you how to draw 50% up front when you're booking your jobs in, and what that looks like in writing. How do you present that to the customer? How do you tell them about that? How do you stage the remaining 50% of the money and things like that? So obviously, if you're new to self-employment and you're getting ripped off left, right and centre, or you're being pulled into other people's payment terms, which is even worse, this is going to help you immensely to get a grip of your cash flow. The booking deposit system has changed the game for many of the members inside the coaching group, because they've gone from using all their own savings and their family's money to buy materials to then swapping and using the business's money to cash flow their business, which is how it should be. We shouldn't be relying on a line of credit. We're not big businesses. We're freelancers, sole traders and small business. So we shouldn't be relying on a line of credit really. We're not, unless you've got, capital investment, and you're a very large business, right, with a huge pot of working capital, which, let's face it, most of us aren't, then I don't believe we should be using line of credit. I feel we should be using the business's money in the form of deposit payments. So that's what we do, and that's what works brilliantly for the small setup or the one-man band or the tradesperson. So I'll show you how to do that. There's accountability sessions in the group. So everybody in the coaching group, we're all on the same page. We're all doing the same thing. We're trying to improve ourselves and our plastering businesses. We're trying to do better. So we work as a team. So on the live sessions each week, we'll like now, we'll jump in, we'll have a chat, we'll hash it out, we'll see what's working, what isn't. When lads are struggling, like Rich was the other week, we'll get around him and we'll put things like this in place, so that it doesn't happen again. Basically, preventative measures. So that's my little shameless plug on the coaching group. These comments are back in now, so and there's a lot of them. So let's see where everyone is. Good evening, Aaron. Yeah, sorry, mate. I did catch your comment there. John Sweeney says that it's simple and straightforward when everything's in writing and there's no arguing. Yeah, bang on, 100%. Rich says, largely, I think you're covering things well. I couldn't word them better myself. Yeah, well, again, Rich, if there's anything, because I know you do a lot of rendering and a lot of cork spray and a lot of external work, which will involve scaffolding. Obviously, we haven't got that issue of other tradespeople being under our feet and teenagers sleeping in and not coming out of the rooms. We haven't got an issue externally, but there are other issues that we might face that maybe not be included on these terms. So again, any feedback's welcome, as you know. Bole says that one day he had a family meeting in the living room, 5 people were smoking fags. So you couldn't see anything. You can't write it off of this stuff, honestly. I did have one job years ago, and the old boy pulled out a deck chair, plonked it in the middle of the room, and says, I just want to watch how you do it and see how you do it. I was like, that's fine, but I'm going to be hitting this lid in about 20 minutes. And I'm worried that, you know, you're going to get plaster in your eye, or I could end up falling on top of you with this trowel. So I said, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to leave the room. And he was upset because he genuinely planned on sitting there all day and watching how I did it. Bless him. We've got video content now, so they don't need to do that. Aaron says, in the terms he has, he's put in a bit about using their toilet. That's a brilliant shout, mate. That is a brilliant shout, and I've not even considered that, using their toilet. And the wash facilities. He says that his cousin got fined by the local council for not having them in his terms. Unbelievable. His cousin got fined by the local council for not having that in his terms. You can state that you have an agreement with a local cafe to use theirs, but you're supposed to have them, particularly if you have lads working for you. Brilliant shout. Yeah, that's a good point, that, Aaron, mate. And maybe something we should be including, the use of the toilet. Good evening, Eric Development C. I hope you're keeping well, and I hope you've sobered up after your late one Monday night in Edinburgh. 4 a.m. I think we rolled in, or past 4 a.m. And I know that Eric was up at 6:30 on the Tuesday to do it all again, and by Tuesday night he looked like he was ready for a nice long sleep. So I hope you've had that long sleep, Eric. I hope you've recovered. Hope you've recovered, mate. Aaron, always state I'll have a recommended scaffolding company that the customer pays directly. He's not part of the rendering. It's not part of the rendering quote. I was going to suggest, I don't do much rendering, mate. In fact, I don't do any rendering. I do the odd corks all over spray. I do a bit of sand and cement if I have to, but I don't really do much rendering at all anymore. But if I did, that's how I would arrange scaffold now. I wouldn't even get involved. It would be completely separate to what I'm doing. and it'd be the responsibility of the customer. The last thing we want is phone calls and texts about when are they going to take the scaffolding down, and the scaffolders dropped a plank on my car, and we don't want to be dealing with that headache, do we? So good shout, that one, mate. Matt Dickett, some good solid points and information. I didn't think of what's he say? Some good solid points and info that I didn't even come to mind with the terms and conditions. Loving the vetting the customer's topic. Yeah, that's big. That's big in this group, mate, the vetting. And there's 3 or 4 full-length video tutorials, Matt, inside this coaching group. If you go to the top of the group, you'll find them up there in the guide section. There's 3 or 4 full-length videos on how to vet your customers from start to finish. So show you how to build your vetting form, what questions to ask, what platform to use for your vetting form. It'll walk you through the whole lot from start to finish and how to do it. It's all free as well. Starts free anyway. If you do want things like file uploads, video upload features and things like that, I can help you with that as well. Get them to send short videos directly to your WhatsApp, which I know a lot of lads are doing straight through the vetting form. So that's an option as well. So just going to touch on the last few comments coming in off webinars, and then we're going to wrap up, guys. So I hope this one's been of value for everybody this evening. Great to chat to you all. And again, anybody that is in the webinars group and you're interested in jumping in, the door's open. It'd be great to have you inside the group. We're about 70 deep now. So we've got 70 plasterers now in here, and people are sticking around, which I think is a good sign. So something's working and we're doing something right inside the group. Camille's on board now, by the way. He's going to be the group tech support. I had a chat with him in Edinburgh. He's been offering down his time and offering down value for everybody since the day he started in here. He's well ahead with a lot of the lessons now, the GBP, the Google Business Profile, the verification process, the building of the websites, the video content. He's well on board now with all of these lessons. So he's now going to be on hand as tech support inside the group, helping you lads as well. So feel free to approach Camille as well with questions that you might have on your Google issues, Google Business Profile and website issues as well, lads. So, well, any final thoughts from anybody in webinars? If you've got any questions at all on anything that I've mentioned this evening, or questions on the coaching group, get them in now just before I shut down, and I'll try and answer live for you. Darren says, how do you sign up to the coaching group? Could I have the information message to me? Yeah, that's not a problem at all, mate. I'll drop you a message as soon as this live session ends. I'll also be smashing a link in webinars for anybody interested watching now. I will be putting a link into webinars, so you can just press that as well. That'll go straight to the subscription page where you can just join straight away, and you'll have full access into the group and all the live sessions, and also all the video training lessons, which there's a lot of ground that we cover, like I say, a lot of ground. Michael, hi all, thanks for the advice. Does your mentoring group help with EWI and rendering leads? Checkatrade keeps harassing me for weeks to sign, but I'm not sure after watching your videos. Mate, please don't sign up with Checkatrade. I'm not gonna go into a rant, but all I'll say is I've had a recent conversation with somebody who's still with Checkatrade. He's spent over £10,000 with Checkatrade, and he's built up 278 5-star reviews with Checkatrade, and now we can't leave. He said to me, I can't leave, I want to join your group, I'm really interested, but all of my work comes from Checkatrade. They phoned him up recently and told him that they're doubling the membership fee, and he found out that new people coming into Checkatrade are paying like a quarter of the price that he's now being expected to pay. That to me says it all really about Checkatrade. And not only that, the last campaign was really underhand, and I won't go there. Have a look at it yourself and make your own mind up. But they're basically tarring tradespeople as untrustworthy, crooks, people that can't be trusted, and the only tradespeople that can be trusted are the ones that they have in their database, which we know is total bollocks. As soon as you pay them, they brand you as a trusted, honest tradesperson. It's the whole operation is bent, in my opinion, and I can't stand how they operate. So please don't join Checkatrade. Come and join the coaching group for a month. How it works is, if you're not happy, you pay your first 24 quid. If you're not happy after a month, you don't feel it's for you, then I'll refund your money back and you can leave. I can't say fairer than that. I'm trying to be completely honest and transparent to encourage people to come in and join. I'm not using any paid ads. I'm not using any Facebook adverts. I'm not doing anything paid to bring people in. I'm literally doing everything organic, like I teach you to do in your business. So that's why you see me hammering YouTube and Facebook and TikTok with these sorts of videos, and also doing these live webinars where you can physically see what we do, because I'm trying to do it organically. I suggest you do the same thing with your business, because honesty is always the best policy. You just show people the results, and then that encourages them to join you, rather than banging the drum and talking a good game. I'll just show you what we do. I'll let the lads speak inside the community group and talk about it in there. And ultimately, if they're not happy, they're going to tell other people. They're going to go back to Trowel Talk community and say, this guy's full of shit, the group's rubbish. So I can't risk that happening. So I've sort of put my ass on the line in that way, haven't I, really? So, but will it help with EWI leads? It will help with any kind of leads. It will help if you're a tiler. It will help if you're doing micro cement. It will help if you're a cork sole lad. It doesn't matter what you're doing, because the systems that we teach inside the group aren't dependent on whether you're doing a specific niche. It can work in any line, even if you're not a plasterer. So if you're a roofer, or if you're a plumber, you could still join the coaching group and apply these lessons, and you'd still build up an authority in your local area where you live. That's basically how it works. Now, I have got another webinar in the webinars group called Introduction to Organic Marketing. If you watch that one, I'm being completely open and transparent about how the lead generation and ranking actually works. So if you're still not convinced, go and watch that one first. But you'll see that basically you can dominate Google and bring in a shitload of organic leads without paying a penny. And it's all done through keywords and content creation and building up. Most important thing, lads, building up your reputation. Like I touched on earlier, there's way too much emphasis on image. People think if I look the part, and that's all that's needed. It's not. You've got to go old school. If you want to be a successful plasterer, you've got to go old school and look at the people that have got 5-star reviews, and a lot of them, right? You've got to sift through those reviews and look at what people are saying about that business. None of them are saying he looked good, he had such a shiny van. His website was so flashy, that's why I hired him. They're not saying that. They're saying he was clean, he was professional, he was friendly, he was reliable. I could trust him. I could leave him in my home while I went to work. he was a lovely guy. These are the keywords, and this is what's important to your customer. Not looking the part, not spending $7,000 on a website. What's important is old school fundamentals, right? And there's no new fundamentals. So we go back and we look at what's really important to the customer, focus on that, build up your reputation where you live in your little town, and then you broadcast that reputation all over the internet, and you showcase yourself using social proof. It's not bullshit. You're basically just saying, listen, these are my reviews. This is what our customers say. And that does the selling for you. So rather than you having to keep hard selling people and convincing them all the time that you're such a great plastering business, you just allow your customers to sell your services for you, and the phone won't stop ringing, mate. Basically, that's how it works. It's working for me. It's working for everybody inside the coaching group. And some of them are all at different levels. Some are brand new to self-employment. Some have been self-employed 30 years and have never considered internet marketing or digital marketing, never used a laptop before, like Ian. Ian's never used a laptop before in his life, right? He's probably in his 40s like me, maybe a bit older. And he is now, after a few months being in a coaching group, he's built a website from scratch. It's ranking first page of Google where he lives. He's got multiple dedicated landing pages for each one of his services. He's got videos embedded into his website. He has built a YouTube channel and is uploading regular content to his YouTube channel. He's got his Google business profile set up and optimized. He is literally, it's like night and day from when he first started in this group to where he is now. Never used a laptop in his life, and he's done all this using an iPad and his smartphone, and it's cost him nothing. It's cost him 24 quid a month. He's bought no specialist technical equipment. He hasn't had to outsource to anybody. He hasn't had to pay a web developer $5,000 to build him a website and get it ranking. So this is just straight from the horse's mouth. You can chat to Ian if you like. He'll tell you himself. He's on Trowel Talk community group, but he's not the only one on there. Again, Camille's one of them. Damien Button's one of them. Alex, one of them. Alec R, he's doing the same thing. Mike's dominating Google. Mike Smart is dominating Google in his local area on Google Business Profile. So it does work, and it's not bullshit. But anyway, where are we now? It's got to be pushing 8:15. So the hour's up. Again, I'll put a link in, and I will be texting Darren over as well, the link. Anybody that wants to join us in the group, the door's open, and we look forward to you being part of the group, guys. I hope this has been good for you. Have yourselves a good Sunday evening, and I'll catch you boys on the next one.